Hey everyone, this is Julien from Memory Cards. I am playing Frost. This is the Nintendo Switch version. I believe Frost has existed on the iOS platform before. I think it was a mobile game, but now it's available on Switch, and I think it's going to be available on Steam, or it might already be available on Steam, but I am playing this on Switch, which is really cool because right now Switch doesn't really have that many card games. I know that Hand of Fate is coming soon, and I know that Elder Scrolls Legends is going to be on the Switch later this year, maybe, or maybe that's next year. But right now, there's not a lot of card games on the Switch, which is kind of a shame because the Switch having a full touchscreen, card games would benefit greatly from being on this system. Card games like this benefit from having that touchscreen, so of course it makes sense that a card game like this would be on the Switch. So I am playing this with a controller. To be honest, hadn't heard much of Frost before. The developers were nice enough to give us a couple review codes so we could check the game out. And while I have played a lot of card building games, not card building games, I have played a lot of card games. Hearthstone, I've played Elder Scrolls Legends quite a bit. Those are very different than a standard single-player deck building game like this is. And when you think of that type of genre, you may think of Slay the Spire, which is a really popular deck building game that's out right now. But Frost takes a very different approach to this genre and has a really interesting, unique art style. As you can see, it has this very simple hand-drawn look, but that fits in with the whole mood of the game, which is you're traveling across this frozen tundra, outrunning the frost, and you're building a deck to help you survive. And we'll get into the specifics in a second here, but that's really something I want to point out is the mood and atmosphere of this game. It's very bleak, cold, as you can see, Frost being the title, and they do a really good job at creating that atmosphere. Having it simple reminds you of the wilderness itself, which at times, while simple, can also be deadly and barren and bleak, and Frost does a great job at portraying that. So we'll jump into Classic, which is just your standard gameplay. I only have easy mode. I'm sure you unlock harder difficulties once you are able to beat it or get far enough to warrant being able to play a higher difficulty. I'm still struggling on easy mode. I've done a few runs. I've played through the tutorial. So I'm getting the gist of how this game works. But again, like if you're watching this video and you're an experienced Frost player, there may be things I do wrong here, but keep that in mind that I am a beginner. But please let me know in the comments if you have any tips for me. I plan on spending some more time with this, especially on the go. I mean, card games are really great for that. I've definitely played my fair share of Hearthstone on the go, mobily. Well, let's just jump in right here. And you're going to see the screen, and it's going to intimidate you if you're new to this, but it intimidated me as well, and okay, let's just jump into it. I was worried there because that was the longest I'd ever seen that white screen. So here's our starting deck. I think this is always static. I've played through a few times, and I think it's always this. We have 4 survivors, 2 food cards, 2 materials, and 2 fatigue cards. Survivors, food, and materials, those are the important cards. Fatigues are deck filler. They're useless. They're not good to have in your deck, and I'll show you how you're going to get rid of them in a second. Okay, so looking at the screen, this is what intimidated me when I first saw it. I jumped into story mode or regular. I didn't do the tutorial first, and when I saw this, I was like trying to make sense of it, and I began to figure it out, but I decided I needed to go back and play the tutorial, which I recommend every new player of Frost do. Absolutely 100% play the tutorial. It breaks things down in such a precise way, a simple way. It makes playing this game a lot easier. So please play the tutorial if you're new. Okay, so what we have here is our hand down at the bottom here. So we have 2 materials, 2 foods, and 1 survivor card. These are all random. Obviously, I've drawn these 5 cards. It could have been anything else, but these are the cards that I've drawn. And what we need to look at first, I'm just going to turn the volume down a bit. There we go. A little bit more. Okay, so what we need to look at first is what our region is. So the region is where we're currently at on this turn. As you can see, we're in the hills, and the whole point of this game, the whole central core to this game, what you want to focus on is being able to travel through different regions. So right now we're in the hills. In order to travel through the hills, we need 2 food and 3 survivors to go towards those hills. And right now our deck has 2 food, so we have enough there, and we have 4 survivors, as you see under the stock in the bottom left. So we have enough. What we need to focus on is making sure that we draw those at an appropriate time and play them and move at our leisure, travel on to the next region. If you look in the top left, there's a frost meter up here. I can't highlight it, but that's how many turns it takes until the frost catches up to us. And once it catches up to us, we die. That's it. Game over. So we have 8 turns. We need to make it through the hills in 8 turns, which we should be able to do no problem. But the problem is that when we travel to the next region, our frost meter isn't going to be completely reset back to 8. It's only going to be reset once. Or 1 tick to our frost meter. So if it takes us 3 turns to get through the hills, when we actually do make it through, it's only going to go back up. So if it goes from 8, 7, 6, it's going to go, or 8, 7, 6, 5, it's going to only go back up to 6, or it's only going to go back up to 7, so on and so forth. And then up here, which I'm highlighting right now, these are idea cards. And what these do is you pay a price and you can add these cards to your deck. So we have the Story Stone. It costs 1 material, that log with the leaf on it. And what it does is it's a 1-use activation, and we can remove a card from your deck. So we would use that to remove a fatigue card from our deck. And how we get fatigue cards is right here next to the region shows the survivor symbol as well as a blank unknown card. You can send survivors out to look for cards, look for materials. However, if you do so, they risk finding nothing and bringing back fatigue cards, or they just risk dying and then they're removed from your deck, which is a problem. So let's go ahead and put our food towards this region and our survivor, because we want to get through here as fast as possible, and we'll end our turn there. And there's our 2 survivors. So you can see the frost meter tick down to 7, but we can go ahead and travel on. So now we're traveling. We've moved here. Now we're in the region Inlandsis. And once we're here, it's going to have a different set of requirements. This time it requires 4 food and 1 survivor. So we have enough to cover the survivor. We don't have 4 food, though. So how do we make up for that? Well, we have to send survivors out to look for food. And there's no guarantee that we're going to find food, which is a problem. So we'll add 1 survivor there now. We'll look up here. Maybe we can get something. Nothing of use from up there is going to help us with this 2 extra food requirement. So we're going to end our turn, add the food here since we can. We'll send a survivor looking for food. They brought back fatigue. We'll try it again, and they brought back material. So we're still not doing well on the food. So we'll end the turn again. And still nothing up top idea card-wise that's going to be able to give us any food. So we're going to have to keep sending survivors out until we get food. So there's a food there. And these are being added to our deck. So once you add your requirement to the region, that region doesn't absorb them. You get them back as soon as you travel again, and it's still in your deck. So they're not being used as payment. They're just temporarily stored there until you get past the region. So we're still looking. I'm going to use some of these materials since we have so much now. I'm going to get a spear, which is going to help us defend against enemies, which will show up from time to time, and I will go over that once we run into them, which I'm sure we will. Do I want the shelter? What does the shelter do? It just removes 2 fatigue, I believe. Cost for activating card, barred resource removed from your... So yeah, it removes 2 fatigue from your hand when you use it. I don't think I want to get that right now, though. I will take this which is the fire. I think the fire, let's see. Trigger the effect. So yeah, we have to use materials to activate it. And it draws us 3 cards. So useful to have, but I don't need it I don't need to play it right now, so I'm not going to. What does the plant pot do? I haven't seen this. So it adds 1 food by wasting 8 food? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe it is like a constant food. I don't know. That seems weird. But here we have another survivor, and we can... So he brought back a terror card. This is just a useless deck filler, which means that if you draw it, it just takes place up in your hand instead of maybe you would have drawn food that turn. But because it's now in my deck, it's just a waste of space. And I'll need to figure out a way to remove that later. And I'm already down a turn, or Frost is 5 turns away. I'm wasting a lot of time trying to get this extra food, which is not great. So that survivor went out and found another survivor. So I have more survivors in my deck. And there's our other food card. So we can move on from this region, which we need to do right now. So one of the things above my survivor, I'm on day 8. I have 18 regions to get through, to get past whatever, and maybe this is the first round, maybe that's just the whole thing. I'm not sure, I haven't made it there, so I don't know. But then my survivor also has 4 health. That's the blood droplet next to him. And this wolf, if not dealt with, will either take a bite out of my survivor and bring him down by 1 health tick, so he'll go from 4 to 3. Or I can choose to sacrifice one of my survivors instead of taking damage myself. But the easiest way to deal with the wolf is just to attack him with the spear and make him go away. That destroys our spear. Our spear's done. So where are we at now with Cliff? We just need 3 materials. We have enough for that. Hopefully we'll draw 2 others on our next turn. I'll send a survivor out. We have another food. That's great. We'll skip this here and move on. Anything worth taking up here? I don't think so. Let's just keep going. We need to make some space in between us and the Frost. We're at 5 now, which is not a great place with 17 days or 17 regions to get through. And we have another wolf here as well. So we can buy the cleaver and use that to kill the wolf, which is probably a good idea. So let's see. Let's end our turn. Oh, okay, so we do have the spear still. I thought the spear was a one-time use thing, but that's good. Let's send a couple survivors out. Material and a fatigue card. All right, we'll move on. There is an ice cream truck that just pulled up outside my place here, and I don't know if you guys can hear that, but got a nice little jingle going on in the back. So this only required 2 food. We are getting killed by these fatigue cards. Send out another fatigue. So that's the danger with sending out survivors, you know, because you don't want to stock up too hard, and you definitely don't want too many fatigue cards, because that it just means it's less likely to pull from your deck, drawing wise, the things that you need. In turn. Another food here. I think we want to chill on sending survivors out because we are heavy on the fatigue. I'll probably need to get something that's going to remove stuff from the deck. And I could get that story stone or whatever it was called, but I think I'll pass. And we'll just keep going here. So I can give the toolmakers some fruit, and they'll give me a material, but I don't see use to that right now since I'm pretty even across the board, 5, 5, 5. I think that's okay. As far as I can tell, there's no real like order or anything in which you need to consider keeping certain materials, like in terms of like, do I want to keep the like more materials, or do I want to keep more food? I think so far so okay strategy has just been to keep it even across the board. I don't know if that's actually worth doing. But again, like I said earlier, please let me know in the comments if you're an expert on this game and give me some tips, because that would be much appreciated. So we're just going to keep traveling here. Frost is 3 turns behind us, which isn't great. Just catching up. But we're okay on travel time too. And here's the risk: is do I travel here and take the wolf's damage, or do I try to end my turn and look for the spear in my next hand, at which point I wouldn't take any wolf damage or have to sacrifice anything. And at this point, I think it's actually better for me to travel past the wolf. And now I have this blood tick here, and I could choose to sacrifice one of these survivors, or I can take the damage myself. And what I think I'll do is just take the damage myself, because that priest here can actually heal me, I think. I'm not sure what the pink talk bubble is, speech bubble. I don't know. I've never seen that. I don't know what that does. But I can give him food, and he healed me that one point, so we're okay. But I also needed that food to get past this swamp, so I'm not sure about that. But let's keep going here. Here's material. We can send Survivor out. Maybe he'll grab food for us. He does. That's helpful. Keep going. We need 2 food in this hand. That is really, really bad, and I think that's actually the end of us. Okay, yeah, because I'm going to end turn here, and I'm just going to die to the frost with 12 days left. So you can see that this game is pretty challenging, and I think I was doing okay there. But again, a beginner. One thing I want to cover last before I head out is down here in the bottom left, there's the rest option. I forgot to mention this throughout playing. It's something I'd probably need to utilize more, but it's a tough strategy. So what rest does is you can do it on your turn, and it removes fatigue cards that are in your hand, but it also ticks off a turn on the frost meter as well. So you have to consider that. Is it worth resting to remove the terror, or I mean the fatigue cards from your hand, in order, is it worth it? You have to weigh the pros and cons. So yeah, lots of strategy in this game, pretty challenging, so expect that, but yeah, a lot of fun and rewarding as well. So Frost is going to be available on the Nintendo Switch this week, so be sure to check it out.